In this video, we're going to demonstrate how to use Cisco's Catalyst 9000V image in concert with a DNA center. This means that what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating a fabric. Now, that fabric is going to be comprised of the Catalyst 9KVs. So if I move to my topology, you can see here that I have the EVENG deployment where I have CAT9K11 through CAT9K21 through 23 in a deployment that represents 2 branch offices. These branch offices are going to be independent of each other. And what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and open the console to one of these devices and just demonstrate the fact that this resource is going to be Cisco's Catalyst 9KV. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say enable. Show version. We can see that this is a Catalyst Layer 3 switch, and if we navigate down to the very bottom of the window, we will see here that this is a Catalyst 9KV 8-port IOSXE switch. It's also very important for us to keep in mind that these resources have connectivity to other devices in my infrastructure. As an example, if I ping my DNAC 10.1.123.101 and I source that ping from the loopback 0 interface of this device, we see that I have reachability. Now, this reachability is extremely important because it's through this reachability that I'm going to be able to allow the DNAC to communicate to these devices and add them to our inventory. And from there, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and do the demonstration where we will assign and provision these devices. We will associate them with fabrics that are going to be anchored on branch 1 and branch 2. And then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and assign the roles of border, control plane, and edge when and where needed. Specifically, we're going to create a fabric and a POX deployment inside of branch 1 since it's going to only require a single device or resource. Let's take a look at what this is going to require. So to do that, I'm going to navigate to my DNA center. And from the DNA center, what we will see is I can navigate to my system 360. And I just want to demonstrate that all of our services are up and operational. Automation and assurance is running, and we can see that I am indeed linked to an identity services engine. That identity service engine is located here, and we can see as a result of looking at the user dashboard that we have no devices or resources that are part of our identity service functionality, but I can go to our administration and we'll take a look at the client management for PX Grid, and we can see that the identity services engine is providing services to a client connected via PX Grid. So with this being said and done, the next step obviously is going to be to take a look at our hierarchy in the DNA center. So from the DNA center, I will navigate to my design and we will take a look at our network settings. And under our network settings, we can see here that I have my 2 branches. I have my AAA configuration for both TACACS, meaning network, and my radius for client endpoint authentication. I have my DHCP server, my DNS server, and my time zone configurations, which is the bare minimum for this demonstration. It's also important to note that I've gone ahead and configured all of the device credentials at a global level at this particular juncture, again, just for the purposes of this demonstration. So this is just fundamentally a proof of concept to demonstrate the fact that in CCIE Enterprise Infrastructure version 1.1, we have the capability of being able to virtualize our environment 100% as soon as Cisco has released all versions of the software that we need to work and function with. I've been asked many, many times by several students whether or not they will be able to build a virtual environment. Now, again, if I go to Eve and we take a look at the configuration here, the 2 branch offices, I have the 4 Catalyst 9K switches connected to 3 Catalyst 8K switches, which will ultimately function as SD-WAN resources. So let's go ahead and create a discovery. I'm going to navigate to the menu bar. I'm going to go to Tools. Under Tools, we are going to instantiate a discovery by adding one. This is going to be called, I will simply call this my CAT9KV discovery. And it's going to use an IP address, and I'm going to use the loopback addresses in my infrastructure, which will be 100.100.123.11 for branch 1's resource, which is ultimately going to be a fabric in a box. And then I'm going to implement a range of addresses that I'm going to use for the other 3 devices located in branch 2, 100.100.123.21 to 100.100.123.23. This gives me a total of 4 devices that I'm going to be discovering. I am going to tell the system to use the loopback. I will go ahead and hit next, and I'm going to tell it I want to use the global CLI credentials. And for my SNMP v2, we're going to use the configurations that have been pre-configured. So what we've got right now is all of the base fundamentals needed to add a device or resource. I could engage netconf at this particular juncture. I'm opting not to, just simply because, again, this is a proof of concept video. I'm going to hit next. I'm going to tell the system that I want to use SSH, which is the default, and we have the SNMP polling properties. And again, I could modify those, but again, since this is just a proof of concept demonstration, I'm not going to. We'll hit next, and rather than dynamically assign these resources to a given location, I'm going to go ahead and say skip site assignment for now. And what we're going to do now is we are going to tell the system to execute this discovery now at this very moment in time. So we will say start discovery in telemetry. We see here that we have a status indication, but I want to look at what's going on. So I'm going to go to view discovery, and we will see here that it has been queued. We are looking in this range of addresses, and we are going to find out the number of devices that are quote unquote reachable in our infrastructure. We can see we've discovered 4 devices. Now those 4 devices will be placed inside of our unassigned directory inside of provisioning. So we will navigate from the menu bar to provision to inventory, where we should see those devices show up in our list of discovered resources. And what we're going to do next is we're going to wait for the system to resolve the identity of each of these individual resources to include their device family. They should be showing up as switches and hubs. We should resolve their MAC addresses, and ultimately we want to see their device names. While this discovery takes place, I'm going to change my focus from default to inventory, which will give me a lot more information. We can see here that the devices are currently being considered as being managed, and they're in the process of being synced, and we have the reachability capability to these. And as we scroll over, we're also going to see right now they're showing up as unsupported. That's nothing to panic about, because at this particular juncture, the device family categorization is unknown. As we can see, all 4 devices are now considered to be managed. All 4 devices are reachable. Currently, they have been not up and operational long enough for me to see a corresponding health score. I do see the system MAC addresses, representative of the fact that these are virtual devices. And if we scroll all the way over to the right, we can see that these are Catalyst 9KV, UADP, 8-port supported switches that show up as virtual 9Ks. So with this being said, the next thing that I want to do is to go ahead and provision these devices to the fabric that I created before the demonstration. So I'm going to grab 9K1. I'm going to go to Actions, and I'm going to simply do a provision device, placing this device in branch 1. This will apply all of the radius and TACAX configurations. While that is going on, I will go ahead and grab 21, 22, and 23, and we will again provision those devices, but they will be provisioned into branch 2. Go ahead and assign all of these devices to branch 2. hit next, and we will next, and again, deploy the configuration to the resources now. So again, this is going to take a little bit of time. Keep in mind these virtual devices, although they seem to be 100% functional for this role, they are a little bit on the slow side. Bear in mind that Cisco announced that these virtual 9Ks are beta images, so I'm hoping that things are going to improve as time progresses. While this is going on, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to navigate to provision. And from provision, I will go to my fabric sites, at which time I should see a listing of the devices and resources. I'm going to go ahead and navigate to branch 1. And if all goes well, I should see an image of 9K11. From 9K11's perspective, what I want to be able to do is I'm going to create a fabric in a box. A fabric in a box deployment requires me to create an edge node, a control plane node. I'll go ahead and use the default list BGP config rather than pub sub. And I need to make a border because the combination of roles that I currently have is invalid. If I have a border control plane node, if I have a control plane node and an edge node, I am now missing the idea of my border node. We'll go ahead and add that. And I'm just going to arbitrarily assign an autonomous system of 65001 since it's branch 1. And I'm not going to do anything else. Again, this is a proof of concept. We'll go ahead and see if we can add this to our fabric, and we will hit deploy, and we'll say do that now. Now, while this is going on, let's go ahead and go to branch 2. And from branch 2's perspective, we'll need to configure the devices. We'll pin them all. And we should see here that we have 21, we have 22, and we have 23 in the configuration. So what I'm going to do now, 21 and 22 are going to be border control plane nodes. 23 is going to end up being an edge node. So let's go ahead and see if we can't make that happen. So I'm going to make 21 a border node. It will have an autonomous system of 65002. And again, I'm going to make it a control plane node. We'll take the defaults. I'll go ahead and say add. Catalyst 9K22 border. Again, we'll do 65002. We'll hit add. We'll make it a control plane node. And then from 9K23, it's simply going to be a border node. And let's see if we can't deploy these resources. So again, given the fact that these devices are virtual in nature, it is important to note that they're not going to be anywhere near as fast as an actual Catalyst switch, but you can't really argue with the fact that these images are free. And let's see what happens. So we will go to provision and inventory. The 23, we can see it has resolved the domain name as a result of the provisioning process. This device should ultimately transition to being reachable. There we go. Right now we can see that C9K11 is showing up as non-compliant. I'm going to go ahead and address that issue. This is normally indicative of the fact that I probably forgot to do a copy run start on that device. So I'm going to go ahead and click non-compliant, and let's see what the problem is. It says startup versus running configuration is different. So they're out of sync. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on this, and what we're going to do is we're going to tell the DNA Center to go ahead and take care of that synchronization for us. So this should execute a copy run start on that device, and unfortunately, it will cause it to need to go through a resynchronization process. It never quite finished earlier. I'm going to go ahead and navigate away from this back to all devices. And if all goes well, we should see that this goes away. Remediation in progress. And ultimately, everything should transition to managed. Okay, everything has transitioned. We are reachable and we are managed in all categories. Now what I intend to do is I'm going to go to my menu bar. I'm going to go to tools, and I want to look at the topology. The topology is going to show me where my devices are located. I place them inside of RTP North Carolina. And if we take a look at the configuration from a topological perspective, I'll click on these guys and I will pin all. And that should break everything up into the individual devices and resources. So again, if I go to branch 1, we can see I have a single device. If I go to branch 2, I have the 3 devices. Lastly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the provision to the fabric tab. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate to the new SD access because it's going to give me a summary page. It's going to be indicative of things we ran into. We have 2 fabrics. If I click on those fabrics, I'll get the list of the fabrics. It will take me back to the more traditional view. And we can see that inside of branch 1, I have 1 device with 3 roles, and I have in branch 2, 3 devices with 3 fabric roles. If I click on BR2, we'll see these devices. And we can see that the border node, control plane node, edge node, and the second border node and control plane node have been deployed inside of branch 2. So again, if we take a look at what we've got in our configuration, we have 2 fully constructed branches. Branch 1 with a single device operating with 3 roles that is functioning as an FIAB, and branch 2, which has 3 devices, 2 borders and 2 control planes, and a single edge device. Now, this demonstration is far from perfect. We've run into some minor issues, a couple of bumps in the road, but again, we're using a beta release of the Catalyst 9KV. If Cisco continues to make the modifications and to expound on the functionality of these resources, I truly think that it's going to lead to the ability for students preparing for CCIE Enterprise Infrastructure 1.1 to operate a home lab that is going to be 100% virtual. In Software-Defined Geeks or SD Geeks, we have been exploring building our home labs and our deployments. I tried to take the opportunity to share that with you guys here on YouTube. So if you want to learn more, maybe consider signing up for SD Geeks. Until then, I will see everyone in the next video. If you have any questions or if you want to know more about this process, feel free to comment in the comment section below. I'll see everybody in the next video.